You're born at New York Presbyterian in a delivery room where your mother's obstetrician has been delivering babies from families like yours for 30 years. Your last name opens doors before you learn to walk. It's been opening doors since 1847 when your great-great-great-grandfather made a fortune in shipping that would be worth roughly $4 billion today. You don't know this yet, you won't know this for years, but everyone around you knows it, and that knowledge shapes every interaction you'll have for the rest of your life. Your first home is a townhouse on East 73rd Street between 5th and Madison. 4 stories, limestone facade, a parlor floor with ceilings so high your crying echoes. There's a nanny from the Philippines named Carmen who raises you more than your parents do. Your father works in finance at the family office. Your mother sits on the boards of 3 museums and a hospital. They're home for dinner twice a week if you're lucky. Carmen teaches you to say please and thank you. Your parents teach you which fork to use. By the time you're 5, you understand that your family is different, not because anyone explains it, but because of what doesn't happen. You don't hear the word no very often. You don't wait in lines. When your parents take you to restaurants, the owner comes to the table. You think this is normal? You think everyone lives like this? The realization that they don't comes slowly, then all at once during your first day of kindergarten at collegiate school, where you meet a boy whose father is a dentist and you ask him which hospital wing is named after his family. The teacher pulls you aside later. That's your first lesson in discretion, though you won't understand what it meant for another decade. Summer happens in Martha's Vineyard. Your family has a compound in Chappaquiddick, 8 acres, a main house built in 1921, 3 guest cottages, and a private beach where your grandfather taught your father to sail, and your father is now teaching you. The boat is a wooden Herreshoff that's older than your grandfather. It's been restored 6 times. You learn to tie a bowline before you learn to tie your shoes. Your grandfather tells you that anyone can buy a new boat, but maintaining an old one properly requires discipline. You don't understand that he's not talking about boats. You call him Grandpapa. He's 73, a retired senior partner at a white shoe law firm his grandfather co-founded. He wears the same Rolex he bought in 1972. It's scratched to hell. He could buy 100 new ones without noticing the expense, but the idea wouldn't occur to him. He explains compound interest to you when you're 7 using shells on the beach. He explains duty when you're 9 after you get in a fistfight with a boy at sailing camp. He doesn't ask if you won. He asks if you were in the right. You weren't. You learn that winning doesn't matter if you're wrong. This lesson doesn't stick. It should have. Boarding school is inevitable. Your father went to St. Paul's, his father went to Groton. You're legacied into Andover at 14 with a last name that's on a library and a dormitory. The acceptance rate is 14%, but that number doesn't apply to you. It never has. You arrive in September with a trunk full of clothes you didn't pack and a lacrosse stick you barely know how to use. Your roommate is from Los Angeles. His father invented something in Silicon Valley. He has opinions about your family's money that he shares on the second night. Old money versus new money. You don't tell him that in your world his money is so new it still smells like the mint. You just let him talk. Discretion, remember? You're not a good student. You're smart enough, but school has always been something that happens to you rather than something you engage with. You get B's without trying, which means you could get A's if you cared. But caring feels like effort, and effort feels beneath you. This attitude makes you unbearable. Your teachers notice. Your advisor notices. You don't notice because nobody tells you directly. They make allowances instead. You miss a deadline, they extend it. You show up late, they pretend not to see. The rules that apply to everyone else seem negotiable for you, and this confirms something you've suspected since childhood. You're different. Not better exactly, just separate, operating under a different system. By junior year, you've developed a personality that people describe as confident, but really means arrogant. You interrupt. You name drop without realizing you're doing it. When someone mentions a restaurant, you mention your family knows the owner. When someone mentions a summer trip, you mention your family's house wherever they're going. You're not trying to compete. You genuinely think you're being relatable, making connections. You don't understand that every time you do this, you're building a wall between yourself and everyone around you. The drinking starts casually, the way it starts for most boarding school students. Beer at parties, vodka in someone's dorm room, nothing remarkable. But you take it further. You're not drinking to have fun. You're drinking to feel different than you feel, which is a distinction that matters even if you don't recognize it yet. By senior year, you're the guy who always has a flask. The guy who shows up already buzzed. The guy who turns every gathering into a challenge to see how far you can push before someone stops you. Nobody stops you. Your friends think it's funny. Your teachers think it's a phase. Your parents don't know because you're careful around them, and they're not around enough to notice the signs. You get into Princeton. Of course you do. Your test scores are fine, your grades are acceptable, and your last name is on a residential college. The admissions officer probably spends 30 seconds on your application. You don't think about this. You think you earned it. You think the world works on merit and you've demonstrated yours. This belief will cost you almost everything, but not yet. First, you have to arrive on campus in September with a credit card that has no limit and a trust fund that starts paying out monthly distributions the day you turn 18. First, you have to learn exactly how much damage one person can do when every boundary is theoretical and every consequence is negotiable. Your roommate during freshman orientation takes one look at your stuff and asks if your family owns a museum. You laugh. He doesn't get the joke because there isn't one. You own 3 Rothko prints and a Hockney your grandmother bought at auction in 1978. They're in storage because you don't have wall space. This is your normal. Princeton absorbs you the way water absorbs salt. You joined cottage, obviously. Your father was cottage, your grandfather was cottage. The bicker process is a formality. They take one look at your last name and the decision is made before you open your mouth. You don't think about the kids who spend weeks anxious about whether they'll get in. You don't think about anything except where the next party is and whether you remember to charge your phone. Your major is politics because that's what people with your background do when they don't know what else to choose. You attend approximately 60% of your classes. The ones you skip, you get notes from someone who actually showed up. Your professors know who you are before you introduce yourself. One of them, a visiting scholar from Yale, mentions your great-uncle's work in State Department archives. You nod like you know what he's talking about. You don't. Your family's history is ambient knowledge you've absorbed without studying, the way you know your own address without memorizing it. Sophomore year, you start drinking before noon. Not every day. Just Thursdays because Thursday is the new Friday at cottage. Then Wednesdays because why not? By November, you're keeping a bottle of Tito's in your desk drawer and taking pulls between problem sets you're not completing anyway. Your roommate mentions it once. You tell him to mind his business. He doesn't bring it up again. This is the thing about having money and a name. People make allowances. They assume you're going through something. They assume you'll figure it out. They assume intervention is someone else's job, someone closer to you, someone more qualified. Nobody intervenes. The cocaine starts at a party in New York over winter break. Someone's townhouse in the West Village. Parents in Aspen. DJ in the living room. Bathroom line that isn't for the bathroom. You try it because everyone else is trying it, and you've never been good at saying no to experiences. The high is sharp and clean and makes you feel like the person you've always pretended to be. Confident, articulate, magnetic. You like this version of yourself. You want more of him. By spring semester, you're buying your own supply. Your dealer is a guy named Connor who rows crew and sells to half of Prospect Avenue. You meet him behind Firestone Library like you're in a movie. The transactions are quick and professional. You pay cash. He never asks questions. You're spending $400 a week on something that disappears up your nose in under an hour. You don't think about the math because thinking about money has never been necessary. The trust fund pays out $6,000 a month. That number meant nothing to you at 18. It means even less now. You blow through $12,000 in February alone. Bottle service at clubs in the city, designer sneakers you'll wear twice, rounds of drinks for people whose names you won't remember. You Venmo people hundreds of dollars for reasons you can't explain the next morning. Your bank app shows transactions at 4 a.m. in locations you don't recall visiting. You're not having fun anymore. You're spending money to fill space, the way people fill silence with noise. Junior year, your grades slip below the threshold where the university can ignore it. You're placed on academic probation. Your advisor calls a meeting. She's kind but firm. She uses phrases like trajectory and potential and crossroads. You nod appropriately. You promise to do better. You don't do better. You do worse. You start missing exams. Not forgetting them, actively choosing not to show up because the idea of sitting in a room for 3 hours feels impossible. Your body doesn't work the way it used to. You're tired all the time, but you can't sleep. You're hungry, but food tastes like cardboard. You look in the mirror and the person looking back has lost 15 pounds and developed a twitch in his left eye. You stop going home for weekends. Your mother calls. You let it go to voicemail. She calls again. You text back that you're busy with midterms. She knows you're lying, but she doesn't push. Your family has never been good at confrontation. It's gauche. You handle things quietly internally through lawyers and accountants and therapists who sign non-disclosure agreements. By senior year, you owe Connor $8,000. He's patient at first, then less patient, then not patient at all. He shows up at cottage during a party and pulls you into a side room. He doesn't threaten you explicitly. He doesn't need to. You understand the situation. You call your grandfather, not your father, your grandfather. Your mother's father, the one who actually has liquid assets and doesn't ask questions. You tell him you made some bad investments. He knows you're lying. He wires you $15,000 the next day. The extra $7,000 disappears in a week. You don't graduate on time. You're 3 credits short because you failed a required course and didn't retake it. Your parents attend graduation anyway. They watch your classmates walk across the stage. You sit in the family's hotel room at the Nassau Inn and drink scotch from the minibar. Your father doesn't say anything. Your mother cries quietly in the bathroom. Your grandfather takes you to breakfast the next morning. Just the two of you at a diner off Route 1. He orders eggs. You order coffee. He asks what you need. Not what happened. What you need. You tell him rehab. He makes a phone call before the check arrives. The facility is in Connecticut, 45 minutes from the Nantucket house. It's the kind of place that doesn't look like rehab. It looks like a spa where everyone happens to be miserable. You stay for 90 days. You learn about triggers and coping mechanisms and the disease model of addiction. You learn that you've been self-medicating feelings you didn't know you had. You learn that money doesn't protect you from brain chemistry. You come out sober, fragile, and $38,000 lighter after your grandfather paid the bill. You move into the guest house on your family's property in Greenwich. You're 23 years old, living in a pool house, attending 12-step meetings at an Episcopal church where everyone knows your family name. You get a job, a real job. Your grandfather arranges it through a friend who runs a private equity firm in Stamford. You're an analyst, junior level. The title sounds impressive to people who don't know what it means. What it means is you build Excel models and attend meetings where you don't speak. The pay is $78,000 a year, which is nothing to your family and everything to the 22-year-olds sharing apartments in Stamford. You wear the same Brooks Brothers suits your father wore to his first job in 1987. They fit because you're built like him. Thin, tall, the kind of frame that makes expensive clothes look effortless and cheap clothes look like costumes. You're sober for 18 months, then 2 years. The 12-step meetings become routine, then tedious, then something you attend out of obligation rather than need. You stop going. You tell yourself you've graduated. That's not how it works, but you don't know that yet. You meet Caroline at a gallery opening in Chelsea. Your mother dragged you there. Some artist whose work she's collecting, abstract pieces that look like accidents with price tags that could fund a small country's healthcare system. Caroline is standing in front of a canvas that's just red, entirely red. She's staring at it like it contains answers. You make a joke about how much red paint costs. She laughs. You're surprised because girls like her usually don't laugh at jokes like that. Girls like her usually are the joke. She's from Philadelphia. Mainline. Her great-grandfather founded something industrial that nobody uses anymore but everyone needed once. You understand each other immediately in the way people from the same country understand each other abroad. You get married at her family's estate outside Philadelphia. Small ceremony. 200 people, which is small for families like yours. Your grandfather walks you down the aisle because your father is too emotional, and your mother insists on tradition even when tradition doesn't quite fit. The reception has a jazz band that your grandmother knew in the 50s. Everyone dances the way people who learned ballroom as children dance, effortlessly, joylessly, correctly. You buy a house in Greenwich, not the guest house, a real house. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a kitchen that Caroline renovates immediately because the appliances are only 5 years old and therefore outdated. Your grandfather gifts you the down payment. Your father co-signs the mortgage despite the fact that you don't need him to. It's a gesture. Everything in your family is a gesture. You have a daughter. Margaret, called Maggie, named after your grandmother who died when you were 12. She has Caroline's eyes and your mother's chin, and a scream that could shatter investment-grade crystal. You love her in a way that terrifies you, because it's the first time you've loved something that can't be replaced by money or connections or a phone call to the right person. Fatherhood doesn't fix you, but it organizes you. You have a reason to come home now. A reason to stay sober that isn't about you. You're good at your job in the way people who don't need the job are often good at it. No desperation, no hunger, just competence. You make associate, then vice president, then senior vice president. The titles mean less than the equity. You start accumulating points. Not wealth the way your grandfather has wealth, but real money. Money you earned. It feels different. It doesn't feel better, just different. You're 34 when your grandfather dies. Heart attack in his sleep at the Nantucket house. The funeral is at the Episcopal Church in Greenwich, where 5 generations of your family have been baptized, confirmed, married, and eulogized. The priest knew him personally. Everyone knew him personally. That was his gift, making everyone feel like they mattered to him specifically. He leaves you $4 million. Your sister gets the same. Your cousins get the same. The bulk of the estate, the real money, gets divided between your mother and her siblings through trusts that were established in 1967 and haven't been touched since. You're 40 when you decide to run for office. State Senate, Connecticut's 28th District. It's not ambition, it's obligation. Your family has always served. Your great-great-grandfather was a congressman. Your grandfather advised 3 presidents informally, the kind of advising that doesn't show up in records but shapes policy. Caroline thinks it's a mistake. She's right, but you do it anyway, because being right and being heeded are different things in a marriage. The campaign is brutal in ways you didn't expect. Not the work, the exposure. People ask about your money. They ask why someone like you wants to represent people who aren't like you. You don't have a good answer, because the real answer is that you don't think about people who aren't like you. Not out of malice, out of architecture. Your life has been built to avoid confronting that gap. You win by 6 points, narrower than expected. The celebration feels hollow. You're a state senator. You attend committee meetings about zoning laws and education funding and infrastructure projects. You're competent, forgettable, exactly what a first-term senator should be. You're being groomed. That's the word they use. Groomed for something bigger. Congress, maybe. Your name gets floated in rooms you're not invited to. People start taking your calls faster. You're 43 when you announce you're running for governor. The campaign is different this time. Bigger money, sharper attacks, more sophisticated opposition research. They find the rehab. Of course they find the rehab. It was never a secret, but it wasn't public either. You do an interview with the Hartford Courant. You talk about addiction, recovery, the disease model. You're honest in a way politicians rarely are, and it polls well, because honesty polls well when it's delivered by someone wearing a tie that costs $800. You're leading by 9 points 3 weeks before the election. Then Maggie gets sick. Not sick like a cold. Sick like the kind of sick that comes with hospital rooms and specialists and words like aggressive and experimental. She's 16. You suspend the campaign. Caroline doesn't leave your side. Your mother arranges for the best doctors. Money can't buy health, but it can buy access to people who might deliver it. Maggie recovers. 6 months of treatment, 2 surgeries, and a prognosis that includes the word remission. You don't return to the campaign. The window closed. Someone else wins the primary. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. You're lying, but the lie is necessary. You go back to the Senate. You serve out your term. You don't run for re-election. You're 46 when the kidnapping happens. It's not random. They knew who you were, what you represented, what your family could pay. They took you from the parking garage under your office in Hartford. 2 men, a van, a smooth operation that suggested planning. The ransom is $20 million. Your family pays it in 72 hours. They find your body 4 days later in a warehouse in Bridgeport. You'd been dead for 3 days. They took the money and killed you anyway, because that's what happens when violence meets calculation. Your funeral is at the same church where they buried your grandfather. Caroline sits in the front row, holding Maggie's hand. Your mother doesn't cry. Your father cries enough for both of them. The priest talks about service and sacrifice and legacy. He doesn't mention that you died afraid in a warehouse because rich men make convenient symbols and inconvenient victims. They bury you in the family plot. Your headstone matches your grandfather's. Same granite, same font, same understated elegance. In 100 years, someone will walk past it and see your name and your dates and assume you lived well. They won't know about the Adderall or the cocaine or the rehab or the political ambitions that died in a parking garage. They'll just see the years between the dash and assume those years were full of the things years are supposed to be full of. They'll be wrong, but nobody corrects headstones. Your life was supposed to mean something. That's what everyone said at the funeral. at the meetings, in the carefully worded statements your family's PR firm released to papers that treated your death like a tragedy instead of a statistic. But here's what nobody mentions in those stories. You were born into a system that made failure optional and consequences negotiable, and that freedom destroyed you more efficiently than poverty ever could have. The money didn't kill you. The kidnapping killed you, but the money made you visible. It made you a target. It made you believe that the rules bending around you your entire life meant the rules didn't exist at all. You spent 46 years learning that wealth opens doors, and you died learning that some doors lead to warehouses in Bridgeport where your last name means nothing except a number on a ransom demand. Maggie will inherit everything you didn't spend. She'll grow up in the same houses, attend the same schools, join the same clubs. Maybe she'll learn what you didn't. Maybe the headstone with your name on it will teach her something about the space between privilege and protection. Or maybe she'll stand in front of a red painting at a gallery someday and make a joke about the price of paint, and the cycle will continue, because that's what systems do. They perpetuate. And your family has been perpetuating for 7 generations. You were just the first one who didn't make it to the 8th. Who didn't make it to the 8th. Who didn't make it to the 8th.